Hi everyone, today we will be talking about how we can support English language learners. Today's engagement will be recorded in a podcast style. You can tune in and listen with a cup of coffee, or you can go about your day, make dinner and listen to us discussing supporting children as English language learners. My name is Bryony Scott and I am a Year 3 inclusion teacher.
I'm Olivia Fennelly and I'm also a Year 3 inclusion teacher with a background in ELL learning. I was ELL coordinator at my last school in London, and I was also an ELL child. Growing up, I spoke Polish as my first language and started school in the UK not able to speak any English. So it's a real passion of mine to support children in the same position now as a teacher myself.
In today's engagement, we are going to explore what an English language learner or ELL learner is and how this can vary from child to child.
We're going to share some examples of some common practice that might be found in your child's classroom and take a look at how we in the inclusion department help to support our ELL learners.
And then finally, today we will conclude with some useful tips and advice for parents to use at home when supporting your child to learn English. Okay, so on this slide, we're going to talk about what it actually means to be an English language learner. And there are actually different categories or terminologies depending upon whereabouts in the world you are. In the UK, the term EAL is actually used to describe any child who are exposed to any other language than English. Here at WSO, we actually use the term ELL, which stands for an English language learner. And it's usually associated with families and children with little to no English. And usually these children do have a little bit of basic language. However, they may require some extra support in order to access academic and social language. If we were to try and find a midway point between what the UK define as a child learning English and what we use here at WSO and here in the UAE, we'd actually consider lots of our pupils here at WSO to be an EAL or an ELL child, as we have so many bilingual families living in the UAE and could actually be placed upon the continuum below. So the diagram below actually shows us that we have a range of pupils in our school that may be very new to English, maybe acquiring English, becoming more familiar, all the way ranging to being competent, fluent with their English spoken language.
So there are some really common misconceptions about children learning English, and you might have heard before to speak English at home with your child, and it can be really tempting to switch to English in an attempt to use it more at home. However, research does suggest that children learning English do need to continue speaking and developing their home language in order to have a firm grasp of vocabulary and grammar associated with their mother tongue. Once they have this solid understanding of their home language, it supports them in acquiring English language. So it doesn't mean to not try and incorporate some English into your lives, but the vast majority of communication should be in their mother tongue. It can be really stressful for children and families to feel pressure to speak in a language that they're not very familiar with at home. And we want children to feel secure and safe at home. It should be a time where your family can have some family time together and not feel pressures of any academic
because they have that pressure at school. They have that pressure at school to try and use the English that they have, and we want to remove that pressure when they're at home.
Exactly. And the more that they learn and their cognition builds in their mother language, as we said before, that actually does help them then in picking up their English language later on.
I think in simple terms, and it's what it said at the bottom of the slide, we want to avoid putting children into a situation where their families are trying to proactively teach them English at home. They are trying to learn English at school. And what's actually happening in that situation is that their mother tongue, their language that they are using with their family, is used less and less. And actually what happens is both languages end up getting watered down and the child doesn't become proficient in any language.
Exactly. So the use of your home language is hugely encouraged at home, and you should absolutely feel no pressure at all to speak English at home.
We will, of course, talk about strategies to incorporate English in a second into your daily routines. But yeah, that's a really good misconception to bear in mind when supporting your child at home. So part of being a teacher is being able to support pupils with ELL, or if you're in the UK, EAL. And teachers are given training when they qualify as a teacher on how to do this, but I know as a teacher, my own professional development time as a teacher has evolved me in supporting children with English language learners as I've had more experience to work with these children and families. Below you can see some picture examples, and I'm using picture examples because maybe many of you at home don't understand the English that I'm speaking, so the pictures are there to support you in understanding these different strategies that you might see your child being exposed to in a classroom. So one common thing that we can use in schools is bilingual resources. So you can see there that there's a word map for verbs, and it has, I believe it's Arabic. Yeah, it's quite small. Yeah, it's Arabic on there. And so that the child can see the Arabic written form and the English form of that word. Another great resource that we have in school are our libraries, and our libraries actually do have bilingual stories. We have quite an extensive Arabic section down there, but we also do have stories in different languages. So you can try and persuade your child when they have their library day to try and locate the bilingual books, and that might be something quite nice that you can share at home with your child.
And that's another reason why you really should develop their home language at home, to make these resources really accessible for them. Because if they are able to read and write in their own language, then they are far more competent in being able to translate it into English when they need to.
Absolutely. And then something else and it's not just for ELL learners that we have in our classrooms, and it's something that we use for all learners, and it's a word wall. The one in the picture there is arranged in alphabetical order. Now, that's really useful for ELL pupils because it's alphabetized and it kind of helps them sort words into some order. A child might be at a developing stage of language and have been exposed to some topic or concept specific vocabulary in class, but they can't recall it. And if the teacher has written a piece of vocabulary down on a piece of paper, stuck it up on the wall, your child might be able to then access that display in their classroom and retrieve that language and then use it either in their spoken language or their written work.
And another really good strategy relating to that, which is probably a bit better for older children, is to use the same concept but within like a vocabulary log, so they can have a little book or a little booklet, anything like that, where when they learn a new word they can write it down, and then they can either like draw a picture, or if they're able to translate it into their home language, and then they have a little personalised dictionary that they can have with them throughout the school day and can access whenever they need to. And you can get alphabetised pages as well, so it makes it much easier to organise when they are looking for a particular word. That's really, really useful for older children in particular.
And then another strategy, again, that's not just for ELL pupils but works for all pupils, is in a classroom setting, your child, they're not expected to sit there quietly and simply raise their hand when they want to answer a question. We do a lot of partner talk in the classroom, and a strategy that we use is to partner children up with a really competent or effective English speaking pupil. It will give them a good model of English and just be that bridge or that gap in between not being able to answer a question, for them to be able to use that person as a strategy to then explore a concept in more depth, or perhaps find the vocabulary that they need but they don't actually have at that moment in time, and their partner could support them in order to do that. Technology massively plays an important role now in our classrooms. Google Translate it's not always perfect. If you've used Google Translate before, we do sometimes get some very strange translations. but it's better than nothing. So our ELL pupils are encouraged to use their iPads if they are at an older age in the school. They can use it to translate phrases or words, or another really great feature which I actually discovered this week is you can actually take a picture of a piece of text. And I didn't know it did this. You can take a picture of a piece of text and it will convert the text into their home language. And hearing their home language just gives your child that security blanket that they need when they're in a school environment, and perhaps they're feeling lost and they're not understanding the learning, and it's just simply because they're not understanding
it's a really fantastic app, especially for new to English speakers.
The second, well, not the second thing, it's not the second thing at all. Another thing that we do in school, and it's not specifically for ELL, but we have our Grow Well program now. For ELL students, it could be very easy for them to become I don't know, maybe like socially separated from their peers, or have feelings of worry or anxiety when they're at school.
Because it can be really isolating. I know myself from myself going to school and being unable to speak English, you kind of feel like it's just you and you're on your own, you can't communicate your needs. So it can be really scary and isolating. So if we all put ourselves in those shoes, we can see how important it is to really make sure we're building the children's self-esteem and thinking about their well-being, as well as them acquiring the language. I'd say they go hand in hand just as importantly as the other.
Absolutely. And the Grow Well program works so well at our school because we now regularly send surveys out to the children which they complete. And it really gives us a termly insight into how these children are feeling. And if we do have children who don't speak English as a first language, we can put strategies in place to help them feel more comfortable at school. Another really basic kind of bread and butter strategy that all teachers will do in their classroom is just labelling items around the classroom. This is seen really predominantly in the early years classrooms, or maybe Key Stage 1's classrooms more, because all of the children might have a lower level of English learning, or they're not quite ready for reading English yet. So having pictorial pictures with a label really supports children in relating the written English to the visual.
It helps them to build that vocabulary that they might not have.
And then the final thing just at the bottom of this slide is there's just a sentence there, and you can see that there has been some images placed above some of the words. This is just an example of some of the strategies we use to support children with ELL when it comes to things like reading or understanding instructions. We have apps available in school where we can convert a piece of text and automatically it will give us pictures, or they're called symbols. And even if your child isn't at a stage of being able to read fluently in English yet, or at all, the pictures are there to support them in understanding what that sentence is actually about. They can almost read the sentence without needing to read the words. And that's used quite widely throughout school.
We also use that quite well in our talk for writing when we're doing story mapping, and that's encouraged from right down in Key Stage 1. They do it quite often, so it's a really great way to build vocabulary and language and support with writing for ELL children or all children, all of our students.
And I think the biggest thing to note here, and because myself and Olivia work with a lot of children with ELL, the biggest thing to know is that these children do not have, they can have a special educational need, but when these children come to us at first with little to no English, they simply need the time to be immersed in the language. Don't be afraid of coming to us for support with your child's language. Not being able to speak English is not a special educational need. It's not a diagnosis of something. It's something that we can support with. And we as teachers know that if your child, especially is new to the country, obviously Dubai's a very transient place. If your child is new to the country, quite often it's just time that's needed.
Absolutely, it can obviously give us a barrier in learning initially. But like Bryony said, the immersion into the environment and lots of English speaking around them is absolutely going to be like the biggest thing that will push their language on. But of course, we do also need to have those like tailored strategies in place that we've spoken about on this slide to help really push it, and just to make sure that the children are learning the language to their maximum potential and not just expected to just pick it up by being in class. There are things we can do to help really support that and push it on.
Yeah, and I think the thing is to remember here, if we remember the previous slide, we talked about how a lot of children in our school are bilingual, and a lot of these strategies will support children whose families might consider English to be their first language, but they also speak Arabic at home. So these are strategies not exclusively for children who do not speak English. These are strategies that support all children that we would consider bilingual.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, in our roles as inclusion teachers, we have got a range of strategies that we use to support our ELL pupils, and we're very lucky to have a really robust system in place that allows any child who has any level of English to help get some additional support from our team of inclusion teachers. So most children, even if they are bilingual at home, most children won't require this level of support. It's mainly for children who are that come under that definition of ELL, who maybe the families have got little to no English at home and they're fairly new to the English language. This doesn't mean that they speak no English at all, but we feel that they need a real push in helping them, and that their level of English language is causing a barrier in their learning.
And it's quite often, we notice the trend, it's quite often we have children in the early years coming to support from the inclusion team for ELL support, or like this year in year 3, if we've had children who have emigrated to the UAE and they've come from countries that are non-English speaking, and they tend to be usually the pupils that we support with through inclusion strategies.
Yeah, so that will mean that they might come out of class sometimes, they might have additional support in class, their teachers may have things in place, either they've done individually or had support from the inclusion team to put into place, and they will receive interventions to help to support their language development. And some of the different ways that we might do this is through the use of games, stories. We use certain apps as well. We use, what's that app?
Language Nut.
Language Nut that we use, I forgot the name there. We do some pre-teaching where we might take the children out of class before a particular lesson and just give them some some new vocabulary, so that when they do go into that lesson, they're not completely, taken aback by they have some basic grasp of the vocabulary
and exposure.
Exactly.
Just gives them a bit of confidence going into
so that they're not so overwhelmed if they're seeing, they've seen the language before, and it just helps them have that kind of exposure and self-esteem. We use colourful semantics, which are really Bryony. That's Bryony's. I'll let Bryony discuss colourful semantics because she loves it.
Colourful semantics is, and it's just those little boxes there at the bottom that are all different colours. It's just basically a very, very structured way of teaching children the semantics of language. So, children might be presented with a picture, and they are encouraged to kind of basically identify the noun and the verbs within the picture, and it just gives children a really instructed way of developing grammatically correct sentences. It's really effective. It can be used right from the early years all the way up school. It gets gradually harder because obviously when we look at the different parts of language, we start using things like adjectives, adverbs, and all of those things can be introduced as children get more proficient with their English. I still really, despite being in year 3, I still like to keep things really practical with my children that I do support for ELL. Last week we made some Play-Doh. We made Play-Doh because the children in class were looking at a unit on instructional writing, so that was a really, really nice opportunity for us to do something practical. There was lots of language used in that session. The children were having fun, and they were more inclined to use the English that they were picking up along the way. Other strategies that we might use in our inclusion interventions are things like circle time, where children are encouraged to kind of share answers. They have other children to model their answers on. And then play. Play is a massive thing that we use, obviously, down in the early years. Something like role play can really provide a safe environment for a child to use their language. Say if they're playing in a home corner, they can be playing with other children that perhaps do speak more English than them, and they just are immersed and surrounded by that language. And that's just another way in which we might support ELL.
Yeah, and I think the play is really important going up as well through the school. You often forget children in year 5 or 6 actually really love to do role plays and
Absolutely.
and games and things, and it's something that sometimes we forget. So it's really important to kind of encourage that as well.
Definitely. Now, this is the part where you might be saying, so what can I do to support my child with their English language learning? And luckily, there are lots of strategies that you can use at home that are not too time consuming, that don't require any special resources. Because I know I'm a parent too. I know the moment, especially when it's remote learning and someone says, you need to get some paint ready or you need to get some paper ready. As a parent with 1,000 other things to do, you do kind of think, oh gosh, I've got to prepare something for this. But luckily, the strategies that we're going to suggest here are, 5-minute prep, 0 minutes prep kind of things. So as we said at the beginning of our engagement, we said don't stop using your child's home language or their mother tongue language. It's so important that they hear and that they speak in their home language every single day. That's not to say, obviously, that we don't want them to be trying to speak some English at home, but for that everyday language, asking your child what they want for their dinner, what they want to do at the weekend, that everyday language and that everyday communication that takes place in your home should be in their home language. We want them to have a firm grasp of their home language as a building block for learning English.
Absolutely, yeah. Another thing you could do is to have some reading material available at home. So books, comics, newspapers in your home language and in English. And try not to worry too much about the level of the content that you're providing. It really doesn't matter. I say the key thing is to choose things that really pique their interest. So if your child's really into football, let them have a look at football magazines. If your child really likes dinosaurs, you can show them some information text about dinosaurs. So don't worry and think, oh gosh, this is really like they can't read these words. It doesn't matter. That exposure and being able to just look at the pictures, all of that will really help to build their English language. So we really don't get hung up on the kind of level of the words that, or the language that they're reading. It's more just get them really engaged, really pick things that will pique their interest and get them wanting to read.
I agree with that one, actually. So my daughter is in FS1. She's nearly 4 years old, and she's obviously doing Arabic at school. And she's obviously, we're from the UK, we're fluent English speakers. She's beginning to learn little bits of Arabic, but she's actually starting to hear Arabic out on the streets. And then most recently, she actually looked at some written text that was in Arabic and actually asked me, is that in Arabic?
That's
so
amazing.
It's really true in the exposure to language, whether it's in the oral form or the written form, is really influential for children's language. Hopefully she'll get better at Arabic. I think her level of Arabic's probably at the same level as mine at the moment. So the next thing you can do as a parent, and this completely depends on your level of English as well. We fully appreciate that your level of English as a parent you may not be confident. So this may only apply if you have the knowledge or the confidence to do so, but trying to rephrase your child's spoken language when they attempt to speak in English. So if you've heard your child attempt to say something in English and you know that's not correct, you could try and rephrase that for them, just like you would if they were speaking in their home language. You'd rephrase that for them. So if they are trying and attempting to speak English, you can step in there, rephrase it for them, and just readdress any kind of misconceptions there.
Yeah, I would stress though to really only do this if you are really sure of the corrections that you're going to make, because then that could then cause even further misconceptions. If you are rephrasing it and perhaps not rephrasing it correctly, it might cause more harm than good. So just only do that if you're, you know, absolutely confident that you are rephrasing them and directing them correctly.
Absolutely.
So arranging some play dates with friends from class or from the wider school. It might be that you can choose to have play dates with children that speak your home language is a really great idea, or children who your child has become familiar with at school, who have got good models of English language. And it can just give them an opportunity to speak in English or in their home language in a relaxed environment, not in an academic surrounding or where they feel pressured to kind of understand. Again, that leads back to what we talked about with play and
their well-being as
exactly
well.
Their well-being, and it just gives them that opportunity to use it socially rather than in school, which can like really surprise us sometimes. Or sometimes they come out with things and you think, oh my goodness, like, you know, they've never said that. It's because they're just comfortable and feeling relaxed, and they are just using it socially, so that pressure's not there. And it just gives them that opportunity to really use the language practically rather than
practically. And I think it just gives them that freedom of speech. You know, if you're learning about a specific topic in class, you're only going to be as a teacher, you're only going to be looking for specific words, specific answers to questions. Whereas in a play environment at the park, you know, there's going to be no set agenda.
Anything can happen
as to what those children are going to be talking about. So yeah, I agree. It's a nice, relaxed environment for them to practice. The second thing, I keep saying the second thing. It's really not the second thing. It's the next thing. Is to listen to your child read their reading book at home as often as you can. Now, we say as often as you can to every single parent in the school, because we all know that listening to your child read their reading book, which is when I say reading book, I mean the colour banded reading book, so not their library book, their reading book that's at their level. You know, we should all be trying to listen to our children read as often as possible because it's just good practice. But when you're doing that, try researching any new words that you come across together. Obviously that book's going to be in English, so you might need to support them with some of the English vocabulary. But if there are words or phrases in there that your child's not familiar with, and it's perhaps preventing them from understanding the story as well, try investigating what that word means. You know, you could Google it, you could just do a discussion about it with your child. And a really nice add-on to that is you could actually talk about that word in your home language, because it might be that your child doesn't know it in their home language. You know, we speak to children that are fluent English speakers, but that doesn't mean that they know absolutely every single word in the dictionary. So you do have to make sure that children understand the vocabulary that they're exposed to, regardless of whether it's English that they're learning or their home language.
Yeah. You can incorporate that as well, just in like a game or something at home. Say you learn a new word, you could say, oh, do we have that in the house? Could we go and find one? Or you might see it in the street. Oh, look, that's the word we found in our book last night. And just really try and reinforce it just in everyday life, and to help build that vocabulary up with them as well. In addition to this, reading to your child is also really important. So either in your home language or in English, it just gives them a model of, you know, of how we should read, helps them with the intonation of their voice, and also just takes the pressure off and allows them to listen to a story and get that enjoyment from a book without having any barriers and being able to read it.
Build that vocabulary.
Exactly.
As well.
Anything that they're hearing you read is helping to support their language. So it's really important, and can also just be a really lovely time for your child. I'm sure most children will really enjoy that special time where parents will read to them. So again, it doesn't matter which language you choose. You could do a mixture. You could do a little bit, especially if you could
try the dual language.
Exactly.
Books.
I was about to say, if you were able to get your hands on a dual language text, or if you really wanted to you know, pre-organize it, you could translate yourself before you start to read, and kind of to read a bit in English, a bit in your home language. You could be as creative as you like, I guess, depending on the time that you have, but
and the level of the parents'
exactly
English language skills, I guess, because we're not going to sit here and say that you should all have amazing English, because we're not saying that. So do what I think is within your grasp and capabilities
exactly
of your own
absolutely
language ability.
And your own language ability is not going to limit your child's language ability. So that's another thing. You shouldn't worry about that. Like, it shouldn't. I know some parents are really stressed and they think it's their fault, but like I said earlier, I'm ELL background. My parents had no English whatsoever when we went to school, myself and my brother, and within weeks, myself and my brother were able to speak English behind their backs, and they had no idea what we were talking about. Them not knowing English didn't limit us learning English. So don't. I've sort of added that in as a side note here, but don't let that concern you. If it is a barrier for you and you find you can't read English,
don't worry.
Don't worry. It's not going to make an impact on your child's acquisition of language.
The next one, I've kind of made this one up, but I think it's something that you could do. I was just trying to put myself into a position. Obviously, I have teaching as a background, and I know that children learn best when they're having fun and playing. So I've made a game up. I've made Word of the Week.
Yeah, we used to use this at my school, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So Word of the Week could be a word or a phrase that you and everybody in your house agrees upon, and you try to use that word on a daily basis just to stretch your child's vocabulary. They might use it incorrectly, but that's okay, because it's an opportunity to learn from. It can
actually be really funny I often say to the children in interventions when we introduce some new vocabulary, I say, if you can make me laugh, if you can be as silly as possible, you'll get an extra point. And that can add an element of fun into it, where they just want, they're then having to think of humour as well, which is another element of the language in itself. And it can make it a bit more fun, and if they know they're going to try and make you laugh or make a joke out of it, it can really encourage them to actually do it as well. Yeah. So that might be a nice kind of spin you can put on it.
There you go. Word of the week.
Yeah, it's great. Or you could even do word of the day. You could literally do, however often you'd like to. And then finally there we've got a little tip. If you are wanting them to have that exposure at home, you're thinking, okay, well, I agree, I probably shouldn't just switch to speaking English at home. One way they can have that really good model of English at home is through television and music. So there's lots of programs that are really great with building vocabulary and helping language. You've got CBeebies on BBC. A lot of their programs are designed to help with early language development. So whether the children are ELL or not, so they're really great starting point. Older children might be a bit discouraged by that, but they literally, again, as with books, anything that piques their interest and is suitable for their age, of course. Absolutely, anything, just that if they're interested in it, it's going to be really helpful. And of course, music is a fantastic way to learn any language. So if your child's musical, do let them have that, that time to listen. And you can always push that on by saying, what are they singing about? Should we Google the lyrics, what that means in our language, and kind of, because a lot of the time we thoughtlessly sing along to something. Absolutely. And actually, even in English, and we don't know what we're saying.
Well, I often sing the wrong words anyway.
Exactly. So by having that conversation, you go, what did they say there? Like when they're trying to sing, and then looking it up, and maybe, can we sing it in the same tune in our home language? Anything like that would just really help to push that language on.
What I would say, going back to the TV programs, is yes, get them exposed using English television programs, but just be selective.
Absolutely,
in what you choose. Not all things on YouTube are a effective model of English.
I was going to say you should be very wary, because obviously it's not policed. It's not, anyone can go on and make a YouTube video.
Absolutely.
In terms of child safety as well, you've got to think about that. And as Bryony said, the models of English mightn't be what we want to expose the children to. So do make sure you have a little bit of discrepancy in what you're choosing to show them.
So I think we've just kind of covered quite a lot there, actually, guys. So this final slide is just about some kind of signposts where you can go to if you want to kind of do a little bit more research yourself, or if you want some resources, or I don't know, just if you want to kind of do a little bit more at home with your child. So the British Council website is a fantastic resource. It's specifically designed for children who are learning English, and there's lots on there. It's almost one of those websites which teachers can use, parents can use.
Yeah.
There's resources on there. There's loads, so go check that one out. It's really, really good to use. We've mentioned the CBeebies already for younger children in school, but we've obviously kind of said things like documentaries, like some good old David Attenborough documentaries would
Nature
be amazing.
shows are fantastic because you get such a high level of vocabulary in those shows. It's so descriptive. They're constantly describing what's happening.
Yeah.
You get an amazing range of language there.
Absolutely.
So they're really great.
And then another thing, so Twinkle is a kind of like a resourcing website that traditionally supported teachers. And in recent years, especially over the pandemic, it has gone from strength to strength, and it now has a dedicated section for parents. And not only parents, but parents in the UAE as well. So there's a lot of Arabic resources on there. So if your child or you are more competent in Arabic, there is a lot of resources on there to support you at home. Some of the things you have to pay for, but there are some free resources on there. And it's obviously not just Arabic. I think you pretty much have any language on there now.
They translate to most languages now. They're actually really good, and it's not just display things either. There's lots of actual resources that you can use, like dual language. They even have like dual language stories and things on there. So it is a really useful thing.
It is.
And if there are some paid things, you could always maybe share an account with some other families or combine it with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we definitely do that as teachers.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
think of ways to get around it. It's not that expensive, and if you can,
if you like to have, like, some parents love resources.
Exactly.
They love to have things that they can use at home with parents. I'm often asked quite a lot by parents. Do you have worksheets, or do you have this? Sometimes we don't, because what we make in school is really tailored to what the children are doing at that moment in time. But Twinkle, like if you want to do some work on verbs with your child, for example, I know without even checking the website that there'll be some activities on verbs, and it will be translatable into Polish, for example.
Exactly. So if you are that parent that likes the concrete resources, then it's definitely worth the subscription. There's countless things on there to use.
And then the final thing is a little website called Bilingual Kids Spot, and again, there's lots of kind of different resources on there, but one thing I did like and I did find is it gives you a link to the International Kids Library, which is a kids library with samples of texts and stories in different languages.
Amazing.
So if you don't have printed copies of books at home, you can access those via the website.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I think that's everything from us.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. Hope we haven't kept you too long, and I hope there's been some useful bits of information you might pick up from our little podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.